talk like this. How's it going?
Just cranked it up, and I think there are people connecting. Vickie Safari, Raja, Douglas Hedwig, and
Really?
hello. Okay, let's see.
How are you guys?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing well. Doing well.
Is that Keith?
Yes.
Hello, Keith.
How are you?
I'm good. Glad you're joining us this way.
I was hoping to come out there, but things got a little crazy at work, so didn't get a chance.
Well, no, we're not open for business.
Yeah, we're just doing this live streaming right now, so
Awesome. Well, it worked out then.
I'm just setting this up a little bit for Brother Shankara, and then he can sit down and. Okay, does this look okay?
It looks great.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna shut this. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Did I step on your?
Not at all.
I'm just gonna shut this. Did you want some tea?
He's going to bring me some hot water.
Okay.
Just hot water.
Oh, did I have the wrong book up?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Keith Hunt. Oh, look who it is. He's in San Francisco.
Hey,
Oh, hey, you guys.
how you doing? We're in San
That's
Francisco. We're at the Golden Gate Bridge.
Isn't that fun? I was playing with those backgrounds earlier.
Yeah.
How can you, should we mute it so that you don't hear every
No,
background?
don't mute it.
You can mute it if you want. You can mute yourself if you don't want us to hear you, and then unmute if you want to talk. Just, play around with it. We're going to all kind of figure this out together, I think.
Okay.
I'm going to X this thing. I might lose you all. If I do, I'll dial back in.
Okay.
Do you see the background we have here?
I think they will. Okay, now, do you need to have all of this open?
No.
Okay, so we can collapse that and just have
Good.
this.
Okay, very
And
good.
then do this.
Very
Okay,
good.
there we are back.
Good. Okay, now we'll turn it a little bit this way so I can see it better.
Okay. There's Raja. Hi.
Hello, Raja.
Okay. You don't need to turn that way, Shankara. I can see.
No, it's not a question. It's for me. Not
Oh,
you.
it's for you. I'm sorry. Leave it to me. Okay, you do. You put it where you want to.
I'm joining in from our.
Brother Shankara.
Hello there.
Hari Om.
Good to see you two again.
Yes. Good to see you too, Brother Shankara. You doing okay?
Doing well, doing reasonably well, yes.
Very good.
We have a larger crowd tonight. It's nice.
Yeah.
Who is there?
Okay, it's 8:04. I'll wait till 8:05 and we'll start the class at 8:05.
I'm gonna try something since we're waiting for a second.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens when we do share screen. It's not-
Come in.
Hello.
Turn your audio. Here, sorry about that.
Okay, I'm trying something right now.
It's different. They changed Zoom. I'm familiar with Zoom, and usually you can mute it somehow.
How come I'm frozen?
Huh? What? Who said what? Who was that?
How come I'm frozen?
Are you?
Yeah. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you fine. Do you appear frozen on your screen?
Yeah, there's
Yeah, it might be that background thing because it works harder to do that. Yeah.
okay,
just
maybe we should back out of
remove-
that.
None.
We see everybody who's here.
I think.
Okay. Yeah, I can't see anybody
Except for
there.
Vickie. Vickie may be in without
Vickie Safari seems to be in without a video. She seems to be just having.
She might be doing, it looks like Brahmadas.
Hello, Brahmadas.
If I hit close, is it going to throw me out?
Close, let me see. What does close do? I mean, you can leave the meeting, but.
Yeah, this thing with the background is different. I'm going to close it.
Okay,
And if it throws me out, I'll come right back in without the background.
that sounds fine.
We're not seeing
We're
the
not
back.
seeing the background.
We're not seeing the background at this
We're
moment.
seeing your
Oh,
room.
well, we're seeing the background in the frozen picture.
Okay,
Oh,
well, go
okay.
ahead and close out probably.
Oh, now I see it. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
see you now. Can you
Good.
see us?
Hi.
Right.
Hi there.
Thank you.
You notice what's in the background, dear?
Yes, I do. An Afghan. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And a mandala over there somewhere in the background.
Yeah, but it's your quilt that's behind me.
I told Shankara he needed to bling it up a little bit.
Class up the joint.
Yeah, class up the joint.
Hello there, Brahmadas.
Hello.
We can. I see how to mute it now too.
Can you hear me?
All right. Well, we're
Yes. Oh, look at.
who is that? I can't see.
It says Douglas Hedwig.
Oh, hello, Douglas Hedwig.
Hello.
All right, here we go. Let's start the class. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
எல்லாரும் வீடியோ பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காங்க.
Divine being look over us lovingly as a mother and father.
எல்லாருமே வீடியோ பண்ணிட்டு
May the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beings everywhere. And especially to those of us who are joining this evening.
Niranjan, are you having trouble coming in? Can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you, Cindy.
Okay, I can't
Okay,
see
very
you.
good. We can't see you, but that's fine.
No, you can see
There
me.
you are.
There
Hello.
you are. Hello, Niranjan.
Hello.
All right, have I got this thing properly positioned
Yes.
for me? Okay.
Yes.
All right. We're going to start with chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita. It's often skipped over, but I think we should go through it for a couple of reasons. First of all, we should get to know the cast of characters. Who are they in terms of the esoteric or spiritual aspects of this? It's a story, of course, of a battle, the Kurukshetra war between two armies. One, the army of unrighteousness, those of the Kurus, and the Pandavas, the army of righteousness. But there's much more to this, having to do with our own spiritual journey. So we'll just start with the characters as they're introduced in the Gita. Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra is the king of the Kurus, of the Kauravas. He is blind. He is incompetent in that he cannot control his own sons or what goes on in his own kingdom. He is, so who is Dhritarashtra in terms of our inner states, our inner being? Dhritarashtra is the blind ego. as it says in the evening prayer, taker away of our pain, we salute thee, though we are blind. The ego, until it is a ripe ego, is blind, doesn't see the consequences of its own actions and so on. So Dhritarashtra has allowed his son Duryodhana to behave in all kinds of unrighteous ways, especially toward the Pandavas, the 5 Pandavas. Now, there is also a king on the other side. The king is Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira also has his own blindness. If you'll remember, he is cheated out of his kingdom, not only his kingdom, but his own family, by his addiction to gambling. So this is another aspect of the ego. This one, however, as we'll see as we follow the story of Yudhishthira, if we do that later on as we talk about it, we'll see that Yudhishthira can be purified. Hello, who's there? It sounds like a child speaking.
Is there? Let's see.
I think somebody got on their lap. Oh, hey, Chinmoy.
Is it Tinny? Is it Tinny and Chinmoy?
Yeah.
I'll be darned. Well,
Santosh.
here we are. Hello, dear.
Hello.
Hello. Namaskar.
Hello.
Oh, that's that Chinmoy. Hello, that Chinmoy is there. It sounded like we had Tinny there also. Okay, so first characters introduced, Dhritarashtra and Yudhishthira. 2 aspects of the ego, the 2 kings. The next character that's introduced in the Gita is Sanjaya. Now, Sanjaya is not blind. Sanjaya, as a matter of fact, is given divine sight and divine hearing, so that he can see and hear at a distance by Krishna. This is the higher aspect of the Buddha that can.
We're getting an echo. Might be on. It might be a good idea if you guys just mute from your side so you can hear Brother Shankara until we do a discussion, because there's a little bit of an echo coming through, I think.
Yeah, let's mute our mics.
Yeah, mute your mic so you can hear Brother Shankara, but we can turn them back on when we discuss.
When we go to
that
discussion,
okay?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're getting some
Yeah. A little
some
bit.
distracting noise.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so Sanjaya is
Tatalon panis di mana?
that's Urmi and Tini.
How did I do that? Sorry.
Could you ask the child to be quiet, please?
There we go. I just muted whoever. It was this person.
Okay.
And so I just muted them
Okay.
for us. Okay. Here we go. Oh, sorry, y'all. There we go. We're back. Okay.
Okay. So we've identified Dhritarashtra and Yudhishthira. And Sanjaya is the psychic power of being able to see and hear at a distance. It's an aspect of the buddhi, that which sees and describes to the inner being what is actually happening. So the buddhi is by nature has these powers. So we now have Dhritarashtra, Yudhishthira, and Sanjaya. Who are the rest of the Kauravas? They are the samskaras and vasanas that we have accumulated, and some of them are quite high. Drona, Bhishma, these people, they're quite noble and quite great teachers, but still they are limited. They are not divine beings. They're still capable of being killed, in other words. and both of them are in this Kurukshetra war. So the Kauravas, the Kurus, are the samskaras and vasanas. These are what Arjuna is reluctant to kill, reluctant to do away with the contents of his mind. So Arjuna represents the mind, both the lower mind and the higher mind. We'll see that Arjuna, if we study the battle itself, we'll see that Arjuna himself is drawn into, by the unrighteousness of his enemies, he's drawn into unrighteousness himself. Even Krishna somewhat participates in this. So Arjuna is the mind, and the five Pandavas are the mind and the five senses. So we see them as capable of being purified and ultimately able to make the journey away from worldliness. So these are the principal characters aside from Krishna. Krishna, of course, is the divine being who, in his mercy, in his grace, has said to the two combatants, you can have, he says to Duryodhana and to Arjuna, you can either have me or you can have my army. Of course, Duryodhana, thinking that Krishna's army will be invincible, immediately chooses Krishna's army, but Arjuna is more than content to have Krishna be his charioteer. Now, what is charioteer? Charioteer is what will guide us through the maze of doing battle with our lower nature and our samskaras, the contents of our active consciousness and our waking consciousness and our active subconscious. So this is how we begin, so please see, hold both these thoughts in your mind. The story as it is told in these beautiful 700 verses of Krishna instructing Arjuna, the mind, and first the error of its ways. That's what chapter 1 and chapter 2 are largely about. Arjuna making this elaborate rationalization for throwing down his weapons and not being willing to fight with his kinsmen, that is to say, the contents of his waking awareness and his active subconscious. So we'll start. Chapter 1, The sorrow of Arjuna. Dhritarashtra. Tell me, Sanjaya, what my sons and the sons of Pandu did when they gathered on the sacred field of Kurukshetra, eager for battle. And then a parenthetical statement from Swami Prabhavananda. In the following verses, Sanjaya describes how Duryodhana, seeing the opposing army of Pandavas in array, went to Drona, his teacher, and expressed his fear that their own army was the weaker of the two, although numerically larger. He named the leading warriors on each side. This is one of the catalog passages to be found in nearly all epics. It need not be translated in full. In order to raise Duryodhana's failing courage, Bhishma, the commander-in-chief, sounded his conch shell horn. I'll read that again. In order to raise Duryodhana's failing courage, Bhishma, the commander-in-chief of the Kaurava army, sounded his conch shell horn. But this was ill-advised, for the enemy chieftains, that is to say, those who were the allies of the Pandavas, the Pandus, the enemy chieftains immediately blew their horns in reply and made much more noise. The trumpeting resounded through heaven and earth, we are told. And now, Arjuna now addresses Krishna, his friend and charioteer. So we're now, we can imagine in our minds these two armies arrayed for battle, all ready to go. And Arjuna suddenly says this to Krishna, his charioteer. Krishna the changeless, halt my chariot there where the warriors, bold for the battle, face their foemen. Between the armies, there let me see them, the men I must fight with, gathered together, now at the bidding of their leader, blind Dhritarashtra's evil offspring. So he's speaking of Duryodhana. Now gathered together now at the bidding of their leader, blind Dhritarashtra's evil offspring. And if we think about what happened that brought them to this place, that's part of the Mahabharata story, what the Duryodhana and his allies have done, trying to crush and even kill the Pandavas, depriving them of their kingdom, sending them into exile. This is what. So these are the people that have brought about a righteous war. Krishna tried to do this through diplomacy, tried to get some accommodation from Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. Dhritarashtra agreed, but Duryodhana said, no, nothing for the Pandavas. Blind Dhritarashtra's evil offspring. Such are my foes in the war that is coming. Sanjaya to Dhritarashtra. Again, this is an aside. Then Krishna, subduer of the senses, thus requested by Arjuna, the conqueror of sloth, drove that most splendid of chariots into a place between the two armies, confronting Bhishma, Drona, and all those other rulers of the earth. And he said, O prince, behold the assembled Kurus. Then the prince, that is Arjuna, then the prince looked on the array, and in both armies he recognized fathers and grandfathers, teachers, uncles, sons, brothers, grandsons, fathers-in-law, dear friends, and many other familiar faces. When Kunti's son saw all those ranks of kinsmen, he was filled with deep compassion, and he spoke despairingly as follows. So in other words, when we see the contents of our mind. When we see the contents of our waking awareness and our active subconscious, when we're witness to these things, this is one attitude that we can take. And it's the attitude that in one way or another, wittingly or unwittingly, most people take. Oh, this is the world I know. These are my friends. These are my relatives. And so all of this population that is, as Krishna will point out, totally illusory. That is to say, it arises and passes away. It's not something that is eternally with us. But here's what Arjuna says. Krishna, Krishna, now as I look on these my kinsmen, arrayed for battle, my limbs are weakened, my mouth is parching, my body trembles, my hair stands upright, my skin seems burning. The bow Gandhaiva slips from my hand. My brain is whirling round and round. I can stand no longer. Krishna, I see such omens of evil. What can we hope from the killing of kinsmen? What do I want with victory, empire, or their enjoyment? O Govinda, how can I care for power or pleasure, my own life even, when all these others, teachers, fathers, grandfathers, uncles, sons and brothers, husbands of sisters, grandsons and cousins, for whose sake only I could enjoy them, stand here ready to risk blood and wealth in war against us. Now, it's easy to be dismissive of Arjuna here. It's easy to say, oh, he's just, getting faint-hearted and so on. But I think it's important that if we're going to make spiritual progress ourselves and face ourselves in this battle, we need to be more compassionate. We need to be more understanding and take Arjuna's feelings seriously. This is what keeps us going from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. This is the path of the fathers. This is not the path that leads us away from rebirth. This is the path that leads us. And for us to simply be dismissive of it, it simply empowers it. It simply empowers it. Because it is ages old. These samskaras go back to the time we were told by Vivekananda. These samskaras go back to the time that when what we think of as life emerged and began to be aware of itself, even in the most limited way. These samskaras of ours are these mental impressions. They're all there. And for us to be dismissive of them and say, oh, well, he's just being, Arjuna is just being faint-hearted, means that we won't take ourselves seriously enough. No, we need to think of ourselves as we are that, but we are that in, as Krishna will very carefully explain to Arjuna, we are that in a most limited way. Arjuna goes on, nor of all things, though they should slay me, how could I harm them? I cannot wish it, never, never. Not though it won me the throne of the three worlds, how much less for earthly lordship. In other words, to be the king of the three worlds, waking, dreaming, and dreamless sleep, or consciousness, subconsciousness, and unconsciousness. Not though it won me the throne of the three worlds, how much less for earthly lordship. if we think back to Yama in the Katha Upanishad, he has won a kind of kingship in the three worlds, this king of death. And he is not happy about that after a long, long period of serving in that way. Krishna, hearing the prayers of all men, tell me, how can we hope to be happy slaying the sons of Dhritarashtra? In other words, slaying the samskaras and vasanas that are born of our blind ego. How can we hope to be happy slaying the sons of Dhritarashtra? Evil they may be, worst of the wicked, yet if we kill them, our sin is greater. How could we dare spill the blood that unites us? This is the ego talking. This is the mind talking. This is the mind making up reasons for not doing what will free the soul from this bondage, this blood that unites us. Where is joy in the killing of kinsmen? Foul their hearts are with greed and blinded. They see no evil in the breaking of blood bonds, see no sin in treason to comrades. So he's describing this spawn, the sons of Dhritarashtra, the children of Dhritarashtra. He's saying, you know, this is how they are. And as Saint Francis of Assisi said, there is no true humility and compassion until we will admit that we are able to commit any act. That's a statement of Saint Francis of Assisi. So this is what Arjuna is saying. But we, clear-sighted, scanning the ruin of families scattered, should we not shun this crime? Oh, is that right, scanning? But we, clear-sighted, scanning the ruin of families scattered, should we not shun this crime, O Krishna? We know what fate falls on families broken. The rights are forgotten. Vice rots the remnant, defiling the women, and from their corruption come mixing of castes. Look how complex his rationalization is becoming. It now says, oh, it'll overturn the whole world if I fight this fight and kill these people. All these terrible things will occur. We know what fate falls on families broken. The rights are forgotten. What vice rots the remnant, defiling the women, and from their corruption come mixing of castes. The curse of confusion degrades the victims and damns the destroyers. The rice and the water are no longer offered. The ancestors also must fall dishonored. The ancestors also must fall dishonored from home in heaven. Such is the crime of the killers of kinsmen. The ancient, the sacred is broken, forgotten. Such is the doom of the lost, without caste rights, darkness and doubting and hell forever. And by the way, this is the story that priests will always tell you. This is the story that priests, this is the crime of priestcraft over and over and over through the centuries. No, you must not disrupt this. You must not break yourself free of these rights and so on. And yet, Chaitanya says, no rights, no times are set, no rights are needful. for chanting of thy name. So vast is thy mercy. So it's not a truth. It's not a truth. This society is not the society within your mind. The society without is not, it has no right to be your bondage. What is this crime I am planning, O Krishna? Murder most hateful, murder of brothers. And they're not really his brothers. They're not really his brothers. He sees them as his brothers because he was raised with them. They're cousin brothers, as it's said in India. But they're not really brothers. They're not blood brothers in that sense. Am I indeed so greedy for greatness? Rather than this, let the evil children of Dhritarashtra come with their weapons against me in battle. I shall not struggle. I shall not strike them, nor let them. Now let them kill me. That will be better. Sanjaya. Now remember, Sanjaya is far from the battlefield, seeing this through this gift of divine sight. So Sanjaya says to Dhritarashtra, having spoken thus, Arjuna threw aside his arrows and his bow in the midst of the battlefield. He sat down on the seat of the chariot, and his heart was overcome with sorrow. Now, as I said before, oftentimes this chapter isn't even discussed. That's how easy it is to be dismissive of Arjuna's state of being here. It's not that he's become a coward. His mind has made up this elaborate rationalization for why he cannot do what should be done. If you read this, the lead up to this battle of the Kurukshetra War, you'll see that the Pandavas were so badly treated, so ill-used, so cheated and defiled, and this is what our samskaras and our vasanas do to us. They rob us of our birthright. That's exactly what the Kauravas, the Kurus, had done to the Pandavas. They had robbed them of their birthright. And so this is why when we face what we face in our minds, and we have to say no to it, when we face the habits and the ways of being and all of the seemingly friendly, seemingly functional, seemingly coping mechanism aspects of ourselves, we need to be able to say no to them. And ultimately, as Sri Ramakrishna said, as Krishna also says in the Gita, you don't need to kill them so much as you just need to turn away from them. But in this dramatic example of the Kurukshetra war, Arjuna, as Krishna points out, does not have that choice. So we have to take Arjuna seriously when he says his heart has become as overcome with sorrow. So then that's the end of the first chapter. And now we go to the second chapter, which is titled The Yoga of Knowledge. But before we do that, why don't you turn on your microphones, and anyone who has a comment or a question, please ask it at this point. I think before we go on, there's been a lot of assertions made here, a lot of things said that could easily lead to questions. So anyone who has a question, please ask it. Or a comment to make, please make the comment.
When Arjuna says, I shall not struggle, I shall not strike them, now let them kill me, that will be better. Then Sanjaya says, having spoken thus, Arjuna threw aside his arrows and his bow in the midst of the battlefield. He sat down on the seat of the chariot, and his heart was overcome with sorrow, and he would not fight. Could that be described as tamas, like he's in a tamasic state now?
Yes, that's a very good observation. He has become overcome by his rationalizations, his mental rationalizations, to become inert, to not act, as is his, as Krishna will point out, his duty, as is his. I mean, he's saying here, I'm not going to defend my family from what these wrongs that have been done to them. I'm not going to defend myself from all that. So you're right, Brahmadas. That is, he has become overcome by tamas.
I don't know if you can see this, but down here it says Aditya raised hand. You can raise your hand.
Okay,
So
I didn't see that. Aditya, what did you have to say, please?
Where is he?
I'm not hearing you.
Tell us how you raise your hand. I don't see how to do that.
There's Aditya. Oops. There you are.
Aditya, raised
Did you
your hand.
raise your hand? Where'd he go? Where did he go? There's got to be a better way to do this.
Anybody else? Well, we're waiting. Well, there's a large number of people we've got here.
14.
Could you explain tamas in a little more detail?
Say it again, please.
Could you explain tamas in a little more detail?
Okay, tamas is the. We'll get to this in some detail in chapters 2 and 3 here, but the tamas is one of the 3 gunas. The 3 gunas are the properties of which they're the qualities or properties of which everything is made. Tamas is that characteristic or quality of solidity, inertia. It expresses itself in human beings as obstinacy, stubbornness, what Brahmadas correctly identified here in Arjuna as now that I'm faced with actually doing this, I just won't do it. And so he just sits down and drops his weapons. So, of course, tamas, being one of the 3 qualities of which everything is manifested, is necessary. Without tamas, gravity is an aspect of tamas. The things, a tendency of things to cohere, to have mass, is an aspect of tamas. So we can't be without it, but it must not be. The 3 gunas are called the 3 robbers, because together they are what conspire to rob us of our birthright, of our unlimited, unconditioned, independent state of being. So tamas is the one that renders us stubborn, obstinate, and inert. We all know the feeling, oh, I'm just not gonna do it. I don't wanna, I'm not gonna. I mean, there it is. So, Aditya, was there something that you wanted to say, to ask or say?
Aditya, you've got to hit unmute if you want to talk. And it's up on your little dial there.
Oh, I think he knows. I
Yeah, he
think,
was in the class last night.
yeah. But
He may be busy.
He may be otherwise occupied. Okay. So
Hello. I have a question.
I can't hear you. Can you not hear me? I mean,
No.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, maybe your mic, when you come in initially, you have to enter with your audio.
Oh, I did that.
Okay.
I don't know. Something happened.
okay.
Maybe.
Well,
Okay.
well, Michelle, okay, sorry.
No problem.
Okay.
Michelle has a question.
Chinmoy?
Yeah, Shimui here.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I miss a couple things, but you said Krishna, I know he's the divine being. Arjuna is the mind. The Kurus are the sanskaras and the vasanas. The 5 Pandavas are the mind and the 5 senses.
Yes.
So 3 of the other characters, what would Sanjaya be or represent?
Sanjaya is the psychic power that has
Okay.
been given to Dhritarashtra so that he is able to, it's the buddhi.
The buddhi for us?
The buddhi for Dhritarashtra, which is the blind ego. In this case, it's so that we can witness this and learn from this. Krishna has given us all, through Sanjaya, divine sight and divine hearing, so that we can see and hear what occurs. So that it can resound down through the centuries as it has.
Okay. How about Duryodhana?
Duryodhana. Duryodhana is the chief of the samskaras and vasanas that wish to keep, wish to rob the Pandavas, the mind and the 5 senses of their birthright. Their birthright being a kingdom in this context.
All right. And the
Their
last
own
one,
kingdom.
the last, the last question. How about Dhritarashtra? What would he represent?
Dhritarashtra is the blind ego. He's the chief ego. The chief Yudhishthira is the higher ego, the more ripe ego. Dhritarashtra is the unripe, dark, blind ego that is completely misguided and unable to control his own passions or his own the spawn of his egoistic being, which are the Kuruvas.
All right. So I got yes. Sanjaya is a psychic power, which is also a blind ego.
No. It is a psychic power that Krishna has given to one of Dhritarashtra's retinue. We all have aspects of ourselves. But don't try to pin this down too much, Chinmoy. These are all gestures toward a way of understanding this. We can talk about this more privately if you like, but Sanjaya is not something that we all possess this power. We all possess this power. It's called the buddhi. But most of us never gain access to it, because even though the divine wants to give us access to it, because we never interrupt our blind ego, our careering blind ego long enough through the practice of contemplation, concentration, and meditation in order to gain access to the buddhi. So the buddhi exists for all of us.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyone else? Okay. I don't know. Aditya had something, but I don't know what it was. Okay, with everyone's...
Brother, this is Sundar here.
Yes, Sundar.
You were mentioning about we should not be dismissive about the Arjuna's unwillingness to go and fight. So
no, we mustn't be we mustn't be dismissive of the sincerity of his feelings.
Mm-hmm.
We must take his feelings seriously. We must take our own feelings seriously. When we have these, when we're tamasic, as Arjuna has become, we can't say, "You're being bad. This is wrong. You're being stupid." We say all kinds of things to ourselves. It is inappropriate. We need to take ourselves seriously and give ourselves the opportunity to do that which overcomes tamas, which is do some actions, as Krishna recommends to Arjuna. Get up and fight. Do your dharmic duty. Do some actions. It is rajas that overcomes tamas. So we must take our own feelings seriously. We cannot be dismissive of ourselves. Arjuna is every person. Arjuna speaks for all of us. And so that's why I say we must not be dismissive and say that he's being stupid or wrong. He's just being, as Krishna points out, misguided. Good question.
Does it mean that, like, when you have some thoughts in the mind, we should not be dismissive about that? We need to take some corrective action in a form of work?
The first thing we need to do is gaze on those thoughts, and just so that we are not reactive to them. Gaze on those thoughts, those feelings, and say, so this is how it is with you right now. Well, the higher mind, the angels of my better nature say that that's not the way to behave. Though I understand, and I am self-loving, I will not be guided by your tamasic or whatever the thoughts may be. I'm not going to be guided by that. I'm not going to react to it. I'm going to act in a way that is wise and in accord with the ideal of I am moving toward my freedom and my happiness, true freedom, true happiness, not the traps that we keep setting for ourselves that seem like happiness and freedom. Very good questions. Anyone else?
Thank you, brother.
Okay, thank you, Sundar. Yes, it's easy not to take ourselves seriously enough. And it's easy, on the other hand, to take ourselves too seriously. That's why it's called a narrow path. You know, the spiritual path is a narrow path. It's easy to stray to one side or the other, to stray towards self-indulgence or to being harsh and strict with ourselves. We know how well it works to be harsh and strict with a child. It doesn't work well at all. Just breeds resentment and unhappiness all around. Well, the same thing is true of us. When we treat ourselves that way, that's exactly what happens. Aditya, are you there? Do you have something that you wanted to say now? Okay, all right. Let's see. It's 8:54. I'm just going to read the very first part of this, and then we'll call it an evening. It's good that we got through the first chapter. So here's what the exchange. Yes.
Can I say from here? Because I couldn't say from there.
Okay.
I think you couldn't hear me.
I could not hear you.
Yeah. So I was saying that so Brahmadas pointed out that Arjuna's actions could be seen as tamasic, but the way he presents it, because it's inertia, and it is something. It is also the quality of sattvic, of the sattva, that you get into a certain kind of inertia. So it's always very difficult to distinguish tamas from sattva.
Right.
So
yeah. Krishna has no difficulty distinguishing it.
No, but I mean what I'm saying here is that when he doesn't have, because he has that knowledge. He's the divine being. But as Arjuna, we are always placed in that difficulty, and tamas always comes in guise of sattva. So he's saying, so all his arguments are towards sattva, because if I kill everybody, then dharma, like world, would be turned upside down. There would be there no rights would be left, and sisters would suffer this and that. So these are all sattvic feelings, that the world, turning upside down, and you're like thinking towards people. So these are good feelings.
That's why Krishna says everything you said is wise.
Yeah.
But mistaken.
That's right. Yeah. So I was just pointing out that tamas sometimes comes as sattva, like it seems like it's sattvic, but it's not.
Yes. And this is, again, this quality of the narrow path.
Yeah.
What is it that is really true? This is why I said, when we see these things happening to us, the first thing to do is gaze on them.
Yeah.
Not react, not say, this is right, this is wrong. Just simply gaze on them. And take their take their measure as best you can.
Yeah.
So that, and we will make mistakes, and we must be completely aware that we will make mistakes. This is not an easy thing that we're doing. This is not an easy path that we are walking. If it were easy, everyone would do it. It's not easy. So don't be perfectly willing to make mistakes. As Vivekananda said, we fall 1,000 times, we rise 1,001 times. So you will skin your knees, you will bloody your nose, you will find yourself up against a blank wall and not know what to do. So we must be very loving with one another. This is why it's so important to have this congregation, to be supportive and loving of one another when each of us comes across these moments, these times. And we must be very kind to ourselves and understand that I'm going to keep on keeping on, regardless of what happens to me. I'm going to keep on keeping on because I've got the conviction that I'm headed in the right direction, and I'm going to be willing to make mistakes. I will mistake tamas for sattva. I will sometimes do that. And so we'll come to a rude awakening that, one of the ways that you can tell if something is tamasic or sattvic is there's no need to overcome sattva. But if you remain in place in this frozen position for too long, you know, this is tamas. This needs to be overcome by action. And this is where we end up sometimes making mistakes. Very good point. Very good point. Okay, well, it's now late enough that we'll just leave chapter 2 till next week, which seems appropriate enough. Anything else from anyone? This has been very good. Thanks for coming in and doing it.
This format works. It's effective. I like it.
Very good. Yeah, particularly when you're self-isolating, as I am here. I'm speaking to you, as I say, I'm speaking to you from my cell in San Quarantine.
What is sattva?
What is sattva?
Huh?
Who's asking?
This is Keith.
Keith? Keith, you and I need to sit down and have a conversation about the gunas. Okay. One thing you can do is read the cosmology of the Gita. At the back of the Gita, there's a section called the cosmology of the Gita. Okay. Sattva is the quality of benign contentment, and it's called the revealing power. Tamas is called the concealing power. Rajas is called the projecting or manifesting power. And sattva is called the revealing power. It reveals the truth to us. it does not give us the inner conviction of the truth. It shows us the truth so that we can then do the work necessary to make it real for ourselves. If you think about the three gunas in terms of physical aspects, the tamas is a block of granite. Now, what happens if a block of granite is under the earth and is subjected to enough pressure and heat? It turns to lava and bursts forth. It projects and becomes new land that will ultimately become soil and so on. So this is tamas and rajas. The sattva we can think of as sunlight. Nothing happens without the revealing power of sunlight. It has revealing powers at many levels. As we know, there are many, many frequencies of vibration and energy in sunlight. But if we just meditate on it, we can't even contemplate on it seriously. We see that without the revealing power, nothing occurs. But that remains hidden from us until we actually do the work to see it. And so that's, but you and I can have a conversation privately, Keith, about the gunas. But I strongly recommend you read and then reread that book, that section at the back of the Gita called The Cosmology of the Gita. And then having read that, read chapter 3 of the Gita, where Krishna goes into some detail about the gunas.
Okay, we'll do. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? This is all
Brother,
wonderful. Yes, please.
Niranjana here.
Yes, Niranjana.
So Arjuna says that all these people that are on both sides of the army are my relatives and kinsmen. So does that indicate that the mind identifies itself with thoughts that are familiar to it, like habits, and I'm not sure I got this.
Absolutely. The mind is made of our samskaras and our vasanas. What's a vasana? The way it's understood here is samskaras are individual qualities or attributes or mental impressions. A group of mental impressions, all leading to a certain kind of behavior, certain attitude or way of thinking. A group of those samskaras then create a vasana. And that vasana will be a habit. Some people have the habit of overeating. There's a number of things that play into that. And so so I have to stay away from Dairy Queen, for example. So yes, the vasanas are, and what happens, this is what Krishna explains in chapter 3 of the Gita. Now, I'm going to use somewhat different words, but this is what he means, is all of our samskaras and vasanas are there, these mental impressions. Some of them are more active than others, but all of them, until we achieve a high level of spiritual attainment and become what is called by Sri Ramakrishna a ripe ego, we have this tendency to identify with what appears in our mind. But what we don't understand is why it appears in our mind is that it's nothing more than the gunas playing across our samskaras and vasanas like they're wind chimes. Just think of the gunas as wind blowing through the wind chimes of our samskaras and our vasanas, and it's creating a reality for ourselves, and we think it's the truth. We think that's how it is, when in fact it is nothing more than what is appearing before us based on what we already knew and already experienced. And so we project that out into the world and we say, oh, that's what's true. And in fact, it is only as Krishna says in chapter 3, the gunas attaching themselves to gunas. We hear the music of our own pre-existing being. And this is why it's hard to make headway against all this, and why Arjuna is daunted as he looks at the task. And Krishna is very plain spoken with him, as we'll see in chapter 2, about the fact that he's daunted and the fact that he's created these rationalizations for it. He's kind and loving toward him, but he's also very direct. All very good questions, all wonderful. This is great, just like we do on Sunday morning. So is there anything else before we close?
Oh.
What?
I enjoyed it, Brother Shankara.
Good. Thank you, Jim. Hello, Catherine.
Hello.
I was just reading
quite
something. Huh?
So I'm learning quite a bit.
Good.
I'd like to
Cindy said she was
re-listen to
reading. I'm sorry, please, go ahead.
Is it going to be recorded in the audio archives to listen to again?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
It was automatically recorded as we did it.
Yes.
Okay, good.
So
Thank
Cindy said she was going to read something here. What is
Oh,
it?
just I noticed there were 4 chat from Raja. Actually, I think it would improve the volume and prevent freezing if all of. Oh, that was earlier. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Just wanted to make sure we got that.
Okay.
There's actually an option for people who don't have the bandwidth to or ability to come in on the computer like this. They can call in. And I don't know if some of the people who are just, their names are showing, I don't know if they've called in or they're just not video, allowing the video, because you have all those different options. But if anybody needs to communicate in some way, like chatting, and they can't talk to us, just let us know.
Yeah, a little thing appears at the bottom of the screen, and I don't see it so easily, but Cindy
You
does.
can leave it like this, and then you can.
Well, I can't because that locks that.
Well, but then you can go.
I see. Okay.
And then you can go. But you have to make that noise when you do it.
All
Anyway,
right.
we're learning this.
Yes,
as we go.
we're learning to Zoom.
But it's I think it's a really good program.
It is a good platform because I see people very clearly.
I think on Sunday that everybody should get their tea and coffee and snacks, and
Right.
you can just business as usual, but
Business
just
as usual.
online.
Right. All right. Well, we'll wind it up this way. Ooh. Oh, dearly beloved, a flower at your feet for each one who comes to your open door. A flower at your feet for each one who stands by your open door and says, "Come to me, offering to break this world's chain that binds us down to ignorance, suffering, and death. A flower at your feet for each one who takes the path that you have struck through this, your jungle world. Om, Amen. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beings everywhere. And thank you everyone for coming, and we'll see you Sunday if you choose to join us for the talk. Just so you'll know, if you haven't seen it, it's part 2 of the restraints and observances of a Don Juan apprentice. So it's a continuation of last week's talk. Actually, the last 2 weeks' talks. So, good night to you.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Namaste.
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 Bye.